Hi there, my name is Stephanie Harper and I'm the author of Wesley Yorstead Goes Outside. This is my debut fiction novel and it will be out October 26th with Propertius Press as well as an audiobook from Brilliance Publishing. So I hope you will check it out. Thanks so much to Boulder Bookstore for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about my book. Wesley Yorstead Goes Outside is about a 33-year-old man named Wesley who is a graphic novelist. He is also agoraphobic and he has not left his apartment for over 5 years at the beginning of the novel. And his life is sort of thrown into disarray when he meets Happy Lafferty, a 25-year-old woman who comes to deliver his groceries on behalf of her father's neighborhood grocer. So through their interactions, a lot of things happen, and I won't tell you what because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but the book really becomes a story of how relationships can transform us and also how we can face our own fears and anxieties and learn and grow from them and then overcome them. So I am going to start off with just a short reading from the novel. This is actually the opening of the novel, just to give you a sense of kind of what it's about and the flavor of the story and the writing. So this section is called Inside, and it's the opening of the novel. Inside my apartment, I have everything I need. For a single inhabitant, it's more than sufficient, with a bedroom large enough for a queen bed, a spacious bathroom, and an open living space with a full kitchen. It has several windows and a door. People tell me the building is in a prime location, given that it's in the heart of the mile-high city. They tell me this is important. It's not a terrible city. I'm certain there are worse. I remember a field trip I took in grade school. I stood in awe on the steps of the state capitol with a round marker set in the marble, showing the exact elevation of 5,280 feet. It's how Denver earned its nickname. A strange sensation of accomplishment overwhelmed me as I planted myself on that stairway above so much of the world. I haven't been to that bronze-domed building in years. The stainless steel supports have eroded under decades of weathering, and the uppermost portions have begun to crumble in structural decay. I haven't seen this myself. I haven't seen a lot of things. My apartment is on the 3rd floor of an old brick building, and if I look out the large window along the east wall of my living room, I see a park, a fragment of grass through the area with a bridge over the river. When the weather permits, these walkways convey people on bicycles, couples with clasped hands and disposable coffee cups, and lone women walking small dogs on fluorescent leashes. If I look further, I can see the Denver skyline hovering over brick buildings in the distance, glowing yellow-green against the night sky, if I look. I never open the window in my living room. I did once, the first year I moved. I'd begun to spend more time inside by then, aware that when I went anywhere, I'd become overwhelmed by the utter unpredictability of people and places. Anything could happen out there. This expectancy that something would happen tightened down in the center of my chest and made it harder and harder to endure any kind of new situation. Still, I had occasional moments when I longed to participate in some small way. And in a quiet instance of contemplation, I entertained the notion that if I opened my window for some fresh air, the sounds of the city, even a breeze, might ease the cabin fever. But the Platte River has always been rank with human garbage, and the swampy aroma of moss and mildew, the noise of rowdy people traversing the sidewalk below, grated on my nerves. I haven't opened my window since. That was 5.5 years ago, 6 months to the day before the last time I left my apartment, the day I realized I'd never leave again, October 27th, 2004. I have everything I need inside. All right, so now I'm going to transition over to the very thoughtful questions that Boulder Bookstore sent me. The first two questions actually really connect with one another, so I'm going to read those together. Question number one is, what was the inspiration for this book? And question number two is, did these characters come to you fully formed and you had to find the story they wanted to tell, or did you have the idea for the plot first and had to find the characters to tell the story? So the idea for this book really started with a question. I simply wanted to know what it would feel like to never leave your apartment. I was really curious about this. And pretty soon after I started thinking about that, the character of Wesley sort of materialized. I knew that I wanted Wesley to be male. That just felt right and appropriate. I also knew that Wesley was going to be an artist, and that his perspective as an artist would play a large role in the story. I didn't go into it with much of a plot. I just sort of started writing the first chapter, feeling out who Wesley was, what his perspective was, what he might be feeling in this moment, after not having left his apartment for 5 years. And everything sort of just fell into place after that. I knew that Happy would be a sort of foil to Wesley, but they would both have suffered their own traumas to bring them to the place in their life that they were now. I knew that I wanted to explore issues of fear and anxiety, and as I wrote the story and really got into it, I think that theme of how we cope and overcome fear and anxiety became stronger and stronger, even within me, as it forced me to sort of confront a lot of my own anxiety that I hadn't really addressed before writing this book. So I kind of knew where I was starting, and pretty quickly knew where I was going to end up, and everything else just sort of happened as I wrote. The next question is, how much did you know about agoraphobia before writing this book? Are you or is someone you know agoraphobic, or did you have to do a lot of research to write Wesley's character? My understanding of agoraphobia was limited to, I would say, the most extreme cases that we see represented, the sort of Howard Hughes type characters and celebrities. And then also, I find agoraphobia is often played for comedic purposes. Thinking of Joan Cusack's character in Shameless, for example. So that was really my frame of reference when I started the book. So the research that I did was really focused on understanding real people today who are experiencing agoraphobia to various levels. Agoraphobia is definitely a spectrum. There are a lot of people who have agoraphobia, but who do leave their homes to varying degrees. Panic disorder definitely runs to varying degrees of severity. Agoraphobia is also more common in women, which I think is really interesting, but many of the most extreme cases seem to happen with men. So reading a lot about those differences was interesting. And to do the research, I took two approaches. I did a lot of sort of clinical research, reading about the diagnostic criteria, the clinical and psychological understanding of agoraphobia and its triggers, and causes, symptoms, all of that. And then I looked a lot at like message boards, support groups for people with agoraphobia, and different ways that I could sort of create a language that made sense to describe those feelings of panic and anxiety that are so true to agoraphobia. And because every person is different and every mental illness is different, you'll see that there are also shades of obsessive behaviors with Wesley's character. There's also a strong element of post-traumatic stress disorder, and how these diagnoses sort of all fit together to create the whole of Wesley's condition is definitely a major part of the story. So I had to really make sure that felt authentic and accurate and real. Next question, how much did you know about graphic novel writing before creating this character? Why did you decide to make Wesley a graphic novelist? I have loved graphic novels for a long time. I think Mouse by Art Spiegelman was probably the first graphic novel I ever read. I read it in high school, and I was just mesmerized by the story and the artwork and the way that those things fit together with this notion of graphic narrative. So I've read a lot of graphic novels and had read a lot of graphic novels prior to creating Wesley's character. While I was a fan of the genre, I knew pretty much nothing about the process for creating a graphic novel, and I am not an artist in any way. So a lot of research went into the actual sort of nuts and bolts of how do you create this process, who creates it, how many people are involved, what tools do you use. Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics was really helpful for me, as were several books that Will Eisner has written about kind of the nuts and bolts of graphic novel creation and narrative. So it was really sort of learning the trade more than anything, so that Wesley felt authentic as a graphic novelist and artist. Next question. In many ways, this feels like a perfect book to come out right now, with so many people feeling afraid of leaving their homes. What has it been like to publish this book during this crazy time? Yes, so when I started writing this book in 2010 and finished it in 2013, I was not planning on releasing it in the middle of a pandemic. So it does definitely change the frame of reference, I think, aside from all of the unique complexities of publishing a novel during a pandemic. The book itself is really well suited to this time, I think. The whole goal of writing the book the way that I wrote it in first person, present tense, was to really put people inside of Wesley's perspective so that you felt the claustrophobia of his apartment, and that you really could relate to and understand his anxieties and panic and his experiences. And I feel like now there is a whole world of a frame of reference for that, because we've all been experiencing ordering our groceries and not leaving the house, and having to sacrifice how and when and why and what we do. All of those things, I think that there will be an added level of understanding and relatability with Wesley's character, and I hope that through the trajectory of his journey outside, not a spoiler because the title is Wesley Orsted Goes Outside, that people will find some hope in the midst of these uncertain times. Next question. Tell us a bit about your writing process. Are you the kind of writer that needs a private, quiet space, or do you like a crowded cafe? What's your daily routine? This is always such a funny question for me because I am not an incredibly disciplined writer. I don't have a daily routine. I don't write every day. I definitely write in what I would say fits of stops and starts, where I will sit down and spend a whole day and write 20 pages, and then I won't touch it again for a week and a half or something like that. Some of that is just the way that I work. Some of that is life circumstances with my living situation, and also chronic illness, because I have a lot of days where I'm not physically feeling ready or able to sit down and write. So it's a little chaotic, which is maybe why I actually really like writing in a cafe or somewhere where there's some background noise and music and things happening. I feel energized by that. I feel energized by being out and about wherever I write. But you know, at the end of the day, I make it work, and I don't think a day goes by where I'm not thinking about my current project. I'm not making notes, jotting down ideas for when I do actually sit down to tackle a big chunk. So writing has definitely sort of found itself just ingrained in the daily process of living. And then when I have the space and the ability to sit down and put pen to paper, so to speak, I try to really capitalize on that and produce quite a bit of content in one sitting. And then the final question, I love this question. What have you been reading during quarantine to keep up your spirits? I've read so many books during quarantine, which I just, you know, I think that's the one really sort of positive thing that has come from all of this. So that I had the opportunity to sit down and really read. So I'm always energized by books that are just phenomenally well written, and really beautiful prose. Luster by Raven Lalani, and Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey. I've read both of those recently, and they just completely blew me away with their beauty. I also really enjoy humor, particularly humorous essays. Wow, No Thank You by Samantha Irby just completely lit up my spirit. It's so relatable and so hysterical. I highly recommend anything she writes. And then I'm always uplifted by memoirs or personal stories that have a really hopeful slant. The Beauty in Breaking by Dr. Michelle Harper is phenomenal. Really gives you a perspective into emergency medicine, with a sort of contemplative slant that she puts to her perspective. I learned a lot from that. And then I loved Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I just find her honesty so refreshing and energizing. And then lastly, I have had several friends release books during the pandemic, and there's just something so special about writing colleagues putting their work out into the world. My friend Laura Allnut just released a book called Below Them the Horizon. Another friend, Brooke Adamslaw, just released a book called Catchlight. So having the opportunity to read these books that are things you've been hearing about for years, while fellow writers are working and toiling and putting their souls into these books, seeing them all out there in the world in print is just so amazing and so inspiring. We need creativity, we need narrative generosity, we need people telling stories and exploring what it means to be human now more than ever, with the state of our country and our world. So seeing so many people that I know and love and care about taking those chances and putting their words out there into the world is just, it's an amazing inspiration for me, and it really gives me a lot of hope for our future. So yeah, that is all I have to say about that. Thanks so much for sticking with me through this. I know that I'm a little bit of a talker, so I appreciate it. Again, my debut book is Wesley Yorsted Goes Outside. It's out October 26th, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and I hope you will check it out. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.